Good morning, everyone. I am Miguel Morel. I'm the founder and CEO of Arkham, which is a blockchain intelligence and analytics company that also has a centralized exchange for spot and perps attached to it. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about Arkham and trading with intelligence, our motto. And that's going to be a breakdown of chatting a little bit about on-chain analysis. We'll be talking about trading in an AI-powered future. And we'll also be discussing a little bit about how Arkham uses artificial intelligence within its technology as well. So let's talk a little bit about AI with Arkham. AI has been at the heart of our company since its founding. From the very beginning, given that our entire business is around data, and in particular blockchain data as well as off-chain data, we need to be able to, at scale, take in information, clean it up, and then apply machine learning techniques in order to identify who the owners of the different respective blockchain addresses are. This is the kind of thing that you can't really do by hand. You can't really do it manually. And if you did attempt to do it manually, it would be extremely expensive, which as a startup, obviously is one of the main priorities, not necessarily overhiring people who then go and sort of analyze blockchain addresses one by one, but rather hiring one person who can build really amazing machine learning, data science, and AI tools that you can throw at all of the large quantities of data that are produced by blockchains on a daily basis from all of their transactions, and therefore can produce all of the information that you see on a platform like Arkham. So in the early days of the company, we actually used AI kind of quietly in the background in a purely internal capacity in order to help us kind of arrange and make all of the data that we were ingesting into our software useful. But as these sort of AI products have become more and more popular, we have started surfacing some of these tools on the front end as well, taking inspiration from a lot of the products that are already out there in order to try to make UI and UX for our customers significantly better and easier for them to understand. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through some of the concrete examples in which we have done this. And we'll also do kind of a quick demo of the platform for people to actually see it all in action. So let's talk about AI application example number one, which is what I mentioned just before this, the labeling of addresses at scale using our internal system, which we call Arkham Ultra. And so Ultra is essentially a system which we built that has multiple different components. The first of these components is actually ingesting raw blockchain data. And in addition to this, which is not on the presentation, also the ingestion of information which is off-chain. That means things that are coming from the broader internet that don't necessarily live within the nodes of different blockchain-related networks. So this means actually taking in every single transaction that has ever occurred historically on the networks that we do support with Arkham. And in addition, then also taking in live transactions as they come in order for us to be able to produce information in real time and insights in real time for our users. And then last but not least, all of the information that you can find in Google and different social media sites, basically anywhere on the internet where people are talking about cryptocurrency and their transactions. The next step is actually the metadata collection and entity classification. So this is using machine learning in order to take all of the different addresses that exist within our system and then cluster them together to their respective owners. So in a situation where, for example, you collect a sample size of 10 different addresses, and you don't know if those are 10 addresses owned by different people or 10 different people, or if they're 10 addresses that are all owned by one person, or maybe it's 2 people with a set of 5. This is essentially where that kind of entity classification comes in, where prior to actually applying the label of who the owner of that address is, you need to be able to know how many people are in the set. And so that's kind of the first step prior to the final one, which is the actual part of de-anonymization. So once you know how many people you're actually working with within the sample size, then comes actually using the data which you've collected and the metadata which you've collected to then associate the clusters of addresses to their respective owners. So actually tagging the company and tagging the individual to their entity profile within Arkham. And what this means is that over the past 6 years, we've managed to build a platform that has 92% of all on-chain value attributed. So 92% of all dollars that have moved on the networks that we support, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Tron, et cetera, have been de-anonymized by Arkham and are searchable on our platform. And this accounts for about $830 trillion of asset flow since the inception of these different protocols. And so I'll switch over to the platform now so that we can kind of go through some of the examples. What you have here is the home page of Arkham. In the bottom right-hand corner, we have our sort of basic block explorer. The really interesting thing about Arkham is that we're not a block explorer for a single chain, right? So the default prior to looking at Arkham was that you would go on Etherscan for Ethereum, you would go on SolScan for Solana, TronScan for Tron, et cetera. Versus with us, you actually just have all of the different protocols in a single space. And so you don't necessarily have to go through different websites in order to get the information. Instead, it's actually just all on a single platform, and I can kind of search for whatever info I want across all of these different blockchains. And so to kind of prove the point, if I were to go to, let's say, Etherscan here and look at some of the transactions, I can look at Etherscan's latest transactions here. But really the only information that they show is the transaction hash, and then you see the from and the to, which is essentially just unlabeled Ethereum addresses. This could really be anyone. However, if I go back to Arkham, and then I filter just for the Ethereum transactions, then I actually surface significantly more information, right? So these are the same sets of transactions. These are just the most recent Ethereum transactions that have happened. But instead of me just seeing a bunch of random addresses, I can actually see, okay, well, these is a gate.io transaction. This is a Curve transaction. This is a meme land transaction, Uniswap, 1inch, Coinbase, et cetera, et cetera. And so you kind of get the basic point of how we actually surface the information to the end customer and why it would actually be useful. And so the cool thing about being able to label all of these wallets and addresses across all these different networks is you start seeing patterns that the same people own multiple sets of wallets, right? So exchanges have all of their hot wallets, cold wallets, there are OTC desks that rotate their wallets as well. And so what we can do is we can actually create entities, which are essentially profiles that have aggregated addresses across all of the different networks, but within a single profile. So say I wanted to look for one of the largest crypto market makers in the world. So let's look at Wintermute. You can search here, click. And now I can see all of Wintermute's crypto activity across all of the different chains in which they operate. I know that they have at least $579 million. Here's the breakdown of their AUM from what they're holding. Here are all of the different exchanges that they've used in a pie chart breakdown of how much they've traded on each. It looks like they have about $1 trillion of deposits and withdrawals, which is pretty expensive. Their first transaction was February 5th, 2019, and obviously we have data going back from then all the way until today. And then here is a list of all of the transactions that they are making across the different networks. We can see here some Arbitrum, we can see some BNB chain, so on and so forth. We've got some information about their balances, P&L, token balances, et cetera. So this is kind of how we actually use the aggregation of this information. Next, we have on-demand technical analysis with the Arkham AI Analyzer. So this is essentially when you are digging deeper into a given transaction, say you find something that's really interesting, you go, okay, well, I'm looking at this transaction on Ethereum. It looks like this address did this other thing to this other address. This looks interesting. I want to learn more about it. But maybe you don't actually understand what's going on behind the scenes. So how do you actually try to attempt to understand what's going on within this blockchain transaction? Well, for something like this, you can actually use the Arkham AI Analyzer. which we can find here. So here I have a block explorer, again, looking at a particular transaction. And what I can do here is I can actually try to understand what's actually gone on. So here I see that there's been a transaction from the Euler finance exploiter to the Euler finance exploiter. Okay, I have no idea what that means. So let me try to understand. So I can click the analyze button. Hopefully my internet is good enough for this. Okay, great, we're working. And then the AI process happens in the background where it sort of analyzes every single part of the transaction one by one. So rather than you needing to actually dig into what's happening with the transaction, it's actually just analyzing it for you, so you don't actually need to understand all of the functions. Once it goes through and parses all of the information within the transaction, it then gives you a sort of very basic natural language explanation for what actually happened, which is, in this case, this is a liquidation. So this is a case where there was a liquidation between this entity, and this was a case of seizing $85 million of WBTC to repay $569 million of DWBTC. So this is kind of an example of a way in which you can very easily understand a transaction in a way that wasn't previously possible without the use of the actual AI. And then the last AI application we have here is application number 3. So we call this surfacing alpha from the noise with Arkham Insights. And so this is our new product, which actually isn't released just yet, but will be coming at some point next week. And so this is where we actually use our AI engine to combine and then synthesize all of our database and then all of the information that we take on across exchanges, global macros, sentiment, news data, and then, of course, on-chain analysis. We sort of take all of this into one place and then actually try to produce signals in real time that are useful for traders, for example, so that they don't have to just dig through as much blockchain information as they can find, but instead the AI will just produce whatever it believes to be meaningful. So this is tailored analysis of whale flows and transaction patterns, identification of material market events and dynamics, the ability to filter by token, time frame, entity, tags. You can sort of curate what kind of news you actually receive and alerts that you actually receive. And then, of course, it gives you optionality for your desired level of granularity for the kind of info that you're actually looking for. So let's skip to that. So here we actually have the Arkham Insights product. I have a previewer version of Arkham, so I get to see the stuff that's not actually released just yet, but this will be out next week. And so here we have an example where there was a news event that actually occurred, which was the resupply.fi hack of 9.5 million. Oh, goodness. Let's put that back. There we go. The hack for 9.5 million. And so in this case, we actually get the news in real time, right? So the event actually occurs on chain, which is detected by our systems. And then, of course, there's all of the subsequent price action and material happenings on the exchange and market side, which it then also pulls in, right? So from these same things that are tagged as resupply.fi, and then, of course, CVX and YFI, also having a connection to it and an association to it from a machine learning perspective, it can then create an insight for you, which you can receive a notification on, which basically explains that this protocol was hacked for X amount. It can show you the kind of price over time, and then it will associate different sort of events that have occurred, and then the subsequent sort of reaction in the price. So in this case, it will sort of detect that there has been a news event, in this case, the hack, and then it will label it against a time graph. And then as you can see, after the news item actually happens, there was a very material kind of drop in price on the core kind of protocol token, but then additionally on some of the other associated tokens as well. And so in this case, this would be an example of you being able, as a trader, to actually understand what has occurred and then take some action in the market, be it shorting, hedging, going long on the token once you think it's bottomed. These kinds of things are all sort of very, very important from a trading perspective, and now you can have it sort of fed to you on a silver platter rather than you needing to do all of the research and due diligence yourself. Great, thank you very much. Do we have time for questions, actually? I might be able to do it. 5 minutes? Okay. Does anyone have any questions that I could help answer? Is there a mic for him? 1 second. Yeah, go ahead.
Just use AI to get things like sentiment or other sort of tagging?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, we can sometimes rely on third-party data sources that are able to collect information from places that would have crypto-relevant information, right? There are plenty of places where people essentially chatter about blockchain addresses or chatter about tokens or chatter about price action. And so it's very important to be able to collect that data. You gave a pretty good example, which is sentiment, which is something that you can really only detect at scale once you have enough information from a bunch of the different places online where people could be providing information about what they believe about a particular token, if they're bullish, if they're bearish. And so yes, we do collect a lot of that information and then subsequently use it for our own kind of insights and analysis.
And any plans on Farcaster?
On which?
Farcaster.
Farcaster. No, I don't think we're doing anything with Farcaster right now, but I mean, could be interesting. Maybe we should reach out. All of the chains that we support, not, yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit more by what do you mean by the anonymization?
Yeah, so essentially, if you take all of the raw kind of blockchain information that exists across all these different networks, you're just going to have a raw list of addresses, right? It's just every, you're going to have every 0x, every 1B or something from Bitcoin, et cetera. And so if you just took that entire set of addresses that has ever kind of existed in every transaction they've ever made and every dollar that has ever been sent on chain, we have managed to attribute 92% of it. So 92 of $100 that have been transferred on chain, we've managed to associate to their respective sender or receiver. And so that's what actually causes the de-anonymization. Now, obviously, with this, you kind of have to think a little bit critically about that number because it's Pareto distributed, right? And so there's an extreme distribution where there are a very few number of players, such as exchanges, market makers, and OTC desks, who can transfer, billions and billions of dollars on a daily basis, whereas the smaller fish, the other 99%, actually move a significantly lower quantity of money. And so once you have kind of the initial, 50, 60, 70% of the addresses which come from these major whales, then the rest is kind of just a war of attrition of attempting to get a lot of the smaller ones, but of course there are diminishing returns. We might never get the last 10% or 8% because they're just a bunch of small fish sending small transactions that nobody ever cares about or let alone would pay for that data, right? And so that's kind of how we operate and where that number actually comes from. Do I have time for one more? Okay, last question.
Thank you. Can you link users together? For example, can I have a profile on Bitcoin, on Ether, and Solana, and they will all be linked to my pseudo identity?
Yeah, that's right. And so one of the cool things about Arkham is once you have managed to identify the same entity on different networks, we do actually associate them all under one profile. And so you can go to Arkham and without needing to go to separate block explorers or separate profiles, see that X person, X company, X market maker has all of these wallets across these 10 different networks. and then you can associate all of the transactions to one another. And in some cases, you can see them kind of bridge even between the different networks and then make the actual connection to it. So we do all of those associations across different chains in a way that kind of makes it a bit of like an omni-chain explorer rather than just like a single one. Yeah, so that is a core part of the business. Yeah, great. All right, thank you all very much.